In a world where jobs are how most people make money, one man, one desire, one challenge dares to break the mold. Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where we don't work for money. Money works for us. Coming soon. Viewer discretion advised.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where cash flow is king. Real estate investing, the means, so you can enjoy your retirement dreams. This is the show where we cut right to the chase. No sales pitch, no long monologues, just simple how-to real estate investing advice, so you can earn the passive income you need to enjoy your retirement today. And now, your host and chief old dog, Bill Manacero.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network. I'm your host, Bill Manacero, and this is a show where 50-plussers and anyone else who wants to join us get solid, no sales pitch real estate investing advice to help generate real cash flow. This podcast airs twice weekly on Mondays and Fridays, and if you aren't already a subscriber, go to iTunes or Apple Podcast, type in Old Dogs, spelled D-A-W-G-S, find our podcast and subscribe. Well, we got a real treat for you here. This is a guy that, man, I've been talking to for a little while now. It's, we kind of made contact through email, and he has a great story. And in fact, he already wrote a little blog that's in our blog section of our website. If you guys get a chance to check it out, maybe after the podcast. But I'm talking about James Ledbetter. And James is just a great guy. He's Texas born and bred. He is a regular guy, and this is from him. So average smarts at best, but I think he's a very smart guy because he's in real estate investing. And he also has a regular full-time job working as a banking compliance officer, but he's been investing in real estate for a while now. And I might add, probably really at the top of his bio is he is just grateful to be happily married and blessed to be dad of 2 teenage girls. And so he is just a great guy. He's got a lot of information to share. He's got 10 single-family rental houses, 1 business rental house, an additional business rental house in the works. I guess we're going to find out what business rental houses are altogether too. But anyway, James, welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network.
Bill, thank you for that nice introduction. Happy to be joining and having a conversation. Appreciate the invite.
Well, it is totally my pleasure. And I get more of a thrill, talking to guys that have, like yourself, that come in and just kind of figure it out on their own, and then start building their little real estate empire there, just on the side, and kind of learn as they go along. And I think talking to people like yourself, I think is really great for our audience, because so many of them, maybe haven't started yet, or maybe they have started, but they're maybe having some rough go of it here and there. And I think what information you can provide is going to be invaluable for our audience.
Well, thank you. And in like manner, Bill, talking real estate with like-minded individuals that either stumbled into real estate or, made a conscious decision that they wanted to own residential properties and rent them out. It's just nice to have that camaraderie and to realize that it can be a vehicle to help you reach several different goals, and those goals don't have to be the same for everybody. But I've sure enjoyed it, and it's always fun to share with other like-minded individuals.
Well, we really appreciate it. And well, why don't you just kind of give us your story? I kind of gave an overview there, but how did you get started, and how did you grow your portfolio, and just kind of give us the basics here.
Sure, sure. And if you don't mind, in preparation, I was trying to think of some words that kind of best describe me in my real estate journey. And I've actually got 4 words that I'll share
I
with you and
love
your
it.
audience, that kind of sum me up. Those 4 words are unsophisticated, untraditional, unconventional, and unorthodox. So, and I say that because I know as I've gone through the years and tried to educate myself and tried to learn from others, and using that great source called the internet to give myself an education, I've realized that, a real estate investor is not going to be in one mold, and not everybody that participates in real estate, might be a square peg for a round hole, and I think that's me. So even though I've enjoyed some successes in real estate, um, it's not because I am very analytical or sophisticated, or that I follow the recipe, so to speak, that other successful real estate investors have. I haven't necessarily followed the path that they've laid out. So I guess over the years, I've just become encouraged by the fact that there's more than one route to success when it comes to real estate. And it really isn't just well suited for just one type of person. Because if it was, I wouldn't be talking to you today, and I wouldn't have stuck with real estate all these years. So my path started many, many years ago, way back in the 90s. I was a single guy. In my 20s, and I realized, hey, as great as it is living at home, I better venture out. I better grow up and, and mature. And when I had that epiphany, there just happened to be a house for sale a few doors down from the house that I grew up in as a teenager. And I asked myself, hey, I wonder if I could buy that house. It seems cheap enough. Not knowing anything about how to buy a property, how to get a mortgage, how to get a loan, but I wasn't afraid to ask that question, and I ended up purchasing this house 3 doors down from where my father lived, and the house that I grew up in, and thus started my, that was the very first purchase that I made, and I still have that house, Bill.
Amazing.
And that's one property that has turned into a business rental. So I rented it for a few years to, just regular individuals that are looking for a place to rent. And then over the years, the whole area where that property has gone commercial. And so now I actually have a business tenant in that occupying that property.
Oh, really? What kind of business?
It's a financial planner.
Okay.
So I actually signed a commercial lease with Edward Jones. You've probably heard of them. They're a pretty prominent, financial planning entity. And so I've had an Edward Jones consultant in my property for a number of years now.
Wow, that's great. Now, how old were you again when you bought this?
I guess I was like, I don't know, 27, something like that.
Okay. And you just went through the regular processes in terms of applying for a mortgage loan and putting the down payment and more the sort of the traditional approach.
Without question, yeah, very, very straightforward, very traditional approach. If my memory doesn't fail me, I think I called the agent that seemed to be the listing agent, and I probably said something like, "Hi, I'm James. Can you tell me how to make an offer on your house that you've got for sale in Round Rock, Texas?" And just really. Didn't try to pretend to know anything because I really didn't. And I said, if you can help me get from point A to point B and help me, make an offer and help me, navigate getting a mortgage loan, that would be great. So thus started, probably several discussions with that individual, and probably got referred to a loan officer who probably then asked me, "Hey, James, do you have a job?" I think at the time I did. "Hey, what do you make?" And I was able to get approved, and I helped that listing agent helped me make an offer on her listing, and the seller accepted. So then I realized, hey, now I own I think it's about an 850 square foot house, and had my first pad, and moved in and resided there for a couple of years, and then a pretty young girl caught my attention, and the rest is history.
Well, that pretty young girl, I assume, is your wife.
It would be, yes. So I had some good fortune in that she was in my path, and thankfully I was smart enough to recognize that, hey, she might be special, and she might be able to help me to be my best self.
Oh, that's great.
So we never lived there as a couple, as a married couple.
Oh, okay.
And shortly after we got married, I think this tiny little, 850 square foot house probably wouldn't have impressed her too much. So I think somewhere after getting married, we realized, hey, probably with her urging, Bill, could we find something that had more appeal to it from her perspective. And when we purchased a second house, I for some crazy reason thought, well, why can't I just hold on to this house and not part with it and turn it into a rental? So it was a learning process the entire time, to ask that question. Okay, now I know how to buy a property. Can I buy another one without selling this one? And what will that take? And, do I need to secure a tenant and, show that I've got an executed lease to pull this off?
Oh, that's great. And so you're just figuring it out as you go along.
Boy, that is so the truth. Yeah, really just being very transparent with every realtor, every mortgage guy I spoke to, just saying, hey, I don't know anything. Can you answer a bunch of dumb questions? Because I've got a lot to ask. And I think maybe just taking that approach and asking others for guidance, was a good approach, because I quickly, within a short period of time, I realized, okay, you can buy a second property and not sell your first one. And here's how you can pull that trick off. Here's how you can go about doing that. And so we moved into a house that a few miles away, and that tiny little first property, 850 square feet. I've just held on to it all these years and gone through, in the early years, probably gone through dozens of tenants. And then, like I mentioned, the whole area became rezoned for business use. And so it was the next logical step for me to see if I could find a suitable business that would love to have a tiny little house where they could bring clients in. And lo and behold, Edward Jones fell into my lap, and it was ideal for a financial planner who was, trying to build their business and talking to clients to have a small presence in a house where they could hang their sign outside and, just kind of give this little property a business look and feel, so that it's the right kind of environment for that type of business professional.
Now, did you have to adjust sort of the rent either up or down because it now became sort of a commercial type rental?
I did. I remember not knowing anything about, well, how do you rent to a business and what do those rent rates look like? I think I recall doing some searches locally and finding a firm that doesn't just rent houses, but they do commercial leases as well. And much like that scenario, I just called and said, hey, I own a property in a downtown area that I think would be perfect for a business owner or somebody looking for, a place to bring by clients, because across the street was a funeral home. A few doors down, there might have been like a dentist office or something like that. So I just found somebody that leased commercial space, and they were eager to say, James, we can market your house. We can bring by potential clients, and let's just see where this takes us. So it all led to, hey, we found you a client. Hey, here's our acquisition fee for bringing you this client. We can help you with a formal commercial lease. And, I was off to the races.
That's great. And the big difference I would imagine would be that you don't have anywhere near the turnover that you would have with a residential property because they're trying to establish their business in a community, right?
Yeah, I would say there are some stark differences, namely the one that you just brought up. Because I manage all my properties myself, Bill, but with my commercial property, I do have that relationship with that commercial real estate company. When questions come up from my tenant, or if there are any alterations that Edward Jones would like to make to the lease, I can go to those experts and say, help me understand all of this. Help me understand all this legalese and the sometimes complex contracts and things like that. Make sure that I don't inadvertently, or because I'm a novice at this, sign something that I don't understand. So I've got them there to help me when those rare instances come up. But yeah, much like a residential tenant, they pay the utilities. You can when there is something that needs to be done at the house, they will call me directly, and I'll find a handyman or a plumber or an HVAC person or whatever. So that's all very similar, because I'm actively involved in all my properties. When a tenant, whether they're commercial or residential, need anything, they text or call me directly.
Right.
And then I'll try to resolve whatever issue is going on at the house, or issue maybe going on with them personally. Let's say they can't make rent on time or something like that. But with my commercial lease, here's a nice plus. That money, that rent gets deposited via ACH into my bank account directly, routinely, by the first each and every month without fail.
That's excellent. That's excellent. And do they sign usually a multi-year lease as opposed to year to year?
I'm glad you're smart enough to bring that up. Yes. With my residential properties, I always just sign a 1-year lease. I try to just keep it simple and tell them, hey, let's just sign a 1-year lease. It doesn't mean we have to change anything in a year, but let's just do this 12 months at a time. But with my commercial lease, it's quite common, or at least that's what I was told, to sign a multi-year lease. And that commercial real estate company that helped me negotiate the rates, they said, hey, James, we can negotiate on your behalf with Edward Jones, and where you get a rent increase every year for the next 5 years. And if they agree to it, you can count on keeping up with inflation and everything else, because we will build in this rate increase for you. And if they may come back and want to negotiate a little bit, but I'm sure they will realize that these are the going rates for commercial space where your property is located, and they'll probably be happy to sign on the dotted line.
That's great. Well, you definitely have grown things though since that first property. You're up to 10 houses, 2 commercial properties. Did you get on sort of a fast track, like figure, well, every year I want to buy something new, or every couple of years, or how did you grow it?
I think for me, and like you mentioned in the introduction, Bill, I've got a full-time job, and because I've got that salaried income coming in, and maybe more importantly, because I'm just a penny pinch, and we lived very modestly, and we like the idea of living below our means. Whenever we've had savings that have equaled like $20,000 or $30,000, I'll turn to my wife, Bill, and say, hey, this money we have over here that we've saved up over the past year, we don't need it for a rainy day. It's just sitting there, not earning hardly anything in a savings account. Do you mind if I go shopping for a house, knowing that I'm going to use that $20,000 or $30,000 for the down payment?
Right.
And so as we've been able to save up and have those funds available for a down payment, I'll go out shopping, making offers on a few different houses, hoping that one will fall into my lap. And when it does, I know I've got the money for the down payment, and I know I can, through various banks, go and get a loan. Just go out and get a pretty standard conforming loan, put that $20,000 to $30,000 down, and then start, looking for a tenant.
That's great. That's great. And now I know you have 10 houses, and I know that in at least all the banks I know that do lending for investors is that it is the limit, isn't it, for at least one person to own a residential property.
Well, I'll tell you this, and maybe it's just out of ignorance. You know, I've I've never spent money, Bill, trying to learn from various real estate professionals. I've just thought, hey, I'm sure there's plenty of information that you can just find for free out there on the internet. And so the education that I've gotten over the years, I ran into that. I realized, okay, it sure looks like a lot of voices are saying, once you've acquired this many properties, you're going to hit a brick wall and there's no way around it. You'll have to pay cash for properties because no lender is going to lend you money. Well, I guess I figured I wanted to convince myself of that and find out, is that true all the time or just some of the time? So as I've acquired properties, I've dialed, what feels like hundreds of banks. I'm sure it hasn't been that many, but I've been known to call every bank in Central Texas or North Texas or in San Antonio, just saying, hi, I'm James. I've got a regular job. I've got a few rental properties. Would you lend me money if I wanted to add to my portfolio? And if 15 banks said, no, you don't look, your profile doesn't meet our criteria or whatever, I would just thank them for their time and start dialing other banks. So over the years, I have found a few banks that have said, hey, James, your credit is good. Thank God I've worked to keep my credit pristine all these years. That goes a long way to looking, credit worthy to a bank. So I've got good credit. I've got my stable job, and then telling them that, hey, I've got, seven properties all rented. I'm and I've got signed leases, and I can produce those leases for you. All of a sudden, I start looking like a credit-worthy individual on paper, and they can pull my credit. They can see all these loans. They can see that these loans that I've got on my properties, they're performing. I'm not late on them. And so all of a sudden I go from, who's this guy that has these rental properties that wants to borrow, wants to get a loan from us, to maybe looking credit worthy, to where they tell me, hey, James, if you find a property and can put 20 or even better 25% down on it, we'll loan you all. We'll give you a loan all day long.
That's great.
So it has been a journey to call countless banks and to say, hey, I'll send you my pay stubs. I'll let you pull my credit. I'll send you my leases. And I guess I've looked decent enough on paper to where they've wanted to continue the conversation, knowing that the loan that the asset that they're loaning on is, I'm putting 20 or 20 or 30 grand down. And if I were to default, they've got a property that they can sell likely for a profit, not just, pay off the loan, but they can likely make some money should I, not perform. But most of these loans are just regular bank loans. They're not FHA or anything like that. They're just talking with a business lender at a bank
Right.
or a credit union.
Wow. Yeah, that's, I mean, I think so much as you speak, it seems to me that, the key word here, I mean, you're talking about unconventional and, all this stuff. To me, it looks like persistence wins. And that's what it looks like. I'm sure you've had your tough tenants, and anybody that's been in as long as you have probably had some real tough ones there. But you've stuck with it. You've persisted. You've moved forward. You've continued to buy and invest in other properties, with and making the phone calls, for example, to all the banks that you have. I mean, that's persistence, and it looks like it's paying, definitely with dividends here too.
Well, Bill, that was a succinct way to, I really do think, because, with, when you finally do make dozens and dozens of calls, and then you talk to that bank that gives you a glimmer of hope, and then you realize, hey, they're going to say yes. They're going to help me get this done. I think over the years, I've just fed off of that energy and realized, okay, being persistent and having that tenacity to not give up, and maybe just kind of taking the approach, hey, problems are going to come. You're going to run into obstacles and hurdles and unplanned for issues, whether loan related or tenant related or whatever. But that's okay. That's okay. Life isn't about easy. It's about, hey, can you um, can you pick yourself up? Can you learn from your mistakes? Can you find little ways to celebrate success? And I think that's what's been encouraging to me, is knowing that, hey, there are solutions out there. Are you willing to, not give up? Keep your eyes focused on the goal, whatever that goal is, and with that, having that demeanor has helped me to get through some rocky patches and realize, hey, I'm still in the game, and and maybe that's the ultimate satisfaction, to know that you can find solutions if you are patient and willing to learn, and rather than just trying to avoid obstacles and opposition and difficult times, just saying, hey, it comes with the territory. Let me see if I can come out on the other end and realize, that adversity doesn't have to take you down, but can help you, can help you fortify yourself, and can certainly be a learning opportunity.
That's great. Well, you spoke of, some of the mistakes and how you've learned from them. Do you have, maybe one mistake that kind of stands out as something that you grew from, and learned from?
I'll share a recent with you. I'll share a recent one with you.
Well, it's good to know even experienced guys make mistakes, right?
Yeah, oh my gosh. Yeah. I have joked and said, someday I'm just going to write all this down and say, hey, look at all these dumb mistakes that I've made, so that others could be encouraged. Yep, I made the same silly mistake, James, but maybe to a lesser extent, because I realized you had been down that path, and I didn't, I chose to walk in a different direction. Real recently, Bill, I just had to rid myself of some horrible tenants at one of my properties that's not in my backyard, but it's actually four and a half hours away in San Antonio, Texas.
Oh, wow.
So when you have a bad tenant that's several hours away, it's challenging because you can't have that face to face, engagement with them to try to resolve what the issue is. So I had to navigate those waters. But here's the upside. I've never had to evict anybody. I've certainly had my fair share of horrible tenants that weren't paying or just were, horrible is a pretty broad blanket. But I've certainly had a lot of tenants under that blanket. But I've never had to formally evict somebody. And I see that as a success because, evicting somebody is costly. It sucks. It's a huge time waste. It interrupts your life as the landlord. And so, I feel like I've learned this unique skill, if you want to call it a skill, in being able to get rid of a tenant who has certainly worn out their welcome in your property, where you realize, hey, it would be in everybody's best interest if you just parted ways. So I've kind of learned that art, if it's an art or skill, of asking and pleading somebody to leave when they have no business being your tenant. And I had to do that recently, and they left me a mess. But I've had to remind myself, hey, there's always some silver lining. Thank God they're out of my property, and I can now pick the pieces up, pick myself up, and slowly try to re-rent this house out. So those challenges do happen even to the most skilled, I think. And I would caution anybody who says, their real estate investing has never had any bumps in the road. I would think that's a misnomer. But you can learn the art of negotiation and learn how to be savvy and smart and learn how to, maybe go a different direction if you find yourself with a tenant that really you should just part ways with. So I've learned that skill. I think it's a skill. And now I'm learning how to pick up the pieces and brush myself off and see if I can maybe do a much better job of finding a tenant that is a good fit for my property.
That's great. That's great. It sounds like it's a kind of a mix of, mistake and success. It sounds like more success than mistake there. It's you also mentioned something, done something pretty unique here too, in that you have, and speaking of big successes here, you've paid off a number of your properties already. Now, did you accelerate your payment plan to do that, or was it just shorter term loans, or that's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, I think being able to keep my full-time job and also having some income coming in from my properties, some cash flow each and every month, and not just and again, being a pinching every penny and living modestly, When we've had extra funds, um, I've gone to my boss, that being my wife, and said, "Hey, um, why don't for this next month I make 3 additional payments on one of our mortgages, one of our outstanding mortgages?" And so I'm always looking for an opportunity to rather than, you know, buy something, a boat or something silly like that. Um, I I I tend to what tends to put a smile on my face is realizing, hey, that loan that I got 5 years ago or 7 years ago for $130,000, it's down to $50,000 now. And, if we're very intentional with extra money that we have laying around, we might be able to pay that thing off. So I've been able to pay off my residence, my primary home, and 3 rental properties. And so when you see that, that hasn't happened overnight, but over time we've been able to reach that goal, and it's pretty satisfying to have properties that are debt free, that you don't have an outstanding balance on. You get reminded of here in Texas how much we pay in property taxes, because every year I pay in total, probably about $60,000 in property taxes.
Woo.
But at least I don't. But by paying off some of these rental properties, it gives you some breathing room.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, James, our audience are folks that are 50 years of age and older. At least that's our target audience, and they're approaching retirement. They're looking at real estate as a means to either generate cash flow or to help them to grow their nest egg. What kind of advice would you have for those folks that that are kind of facing that next season of their lives? And in your experience, how do you see maybe real estate being part of that?
Well, I'll share this, Bill. Maybe some of your listenership, they may be fortunate enough to have, quote, retirement money sitting in a Roth IRA or 401k or something like that. A number of years ago, I had a pretty modest 401k plan at a prior employer. And when I left that job, I was burned out and seeking a role somewhere else. So when I left that job, I realized, hey, I've got, I think at the time it was about $50,000 in this employee, stock option plan that my employer provided. And I thought, should I leave that money there? Do I enjoy having money in the market? And the answer is, I guess I did. But or could I use that money to keep this real estate, thing going? And so I got online and started doing some random searches, and I found I found some folks that had decided to cash out of a retirement plan early. And I thought, hey, this $50,000, I would much rather have it in an asset that I can understand rather than a mutual fund or some, target fund or stocks and bonds or something like that. So I cashed out. I took that money, I paid the tax on it, because, it was prior to being retirement age, so I couldn't pull it out tax free. So I paid that penalty. I paid 20% tax or whatever it was. And then I thought, okay, now I'm left with like $30,000. Let me use that to purchase another property. Let that be the down payment I need for another rental property. So at the time I was buying properties that were very modestly priced, anywhere from $125,000 to maybe 145. I've never purchased a single family residence over $150,000.
Wow.
That's been the space that I've been in. And so in Texas, back in the day, you could buy a comfortable 3 or 4 bedroom house in a decent neighborhood that would appeal to a lot of folks, families, for about 135 to 145. And I knew that, okay, why don't I cash out this modest amount of this stock equity plan that I have through my former employer, and use that for a down payment on another property. So to answer your question, if you had people in your listenership that had money sitting idle somewhere, or it just didn't appeal to them to have it in the stock market, they could certainly do what I did and pull that money out and use that money as a down payment on a rental house.
It's great advice. Really good. Well, you've built up this amazing portfolio that it just sounds like it's just been fantastic for you, and sounds like you're not in a hurry to get rid of them. Do you have sort of an idea of what you want to see in 10, 20 years down the road? Do you want to see more properties? Do you just want to see these free and clear? Do you want to, what sort of, just your future view of what you want to do?
Sure. I think with the 12 properties I have, at least right now, for the foreseeable future, I'm in a holding pattern. I don't just have that desire to add to my portfolio, Bill. That could change, but right now, the fact that the mortgage that the loan that we just paid off most recently was all within the last 3 months. I think I'm getting enough satisfaction in just incrementally or as quickly as I can to paying down these debts, paying down these loans. So the future, if I got lucky and was blessed and can continue my day job, and as long as there's not some unforeseeable event that happens, maybe I can just be very regimented about paying down these loans, and owning a few more properties free and clear sounds awfully appealing to me. And I'll tell you what I've done on two of the properties that I've owned free and clear. I've gone out and engaged those same banks that I've had these loans with and said, hey, I've got a property over here that I own free and clear. Would you give me a line of credit on that property? Not a home equity cash out where, they hand me $75,000 or $100,000, but where I've got 2 lines of credit on 2 of my rental properties that I've paid off. That money is just sitting there idle. If I ever need it, it's like having a credit card on these 2 properties. And this second property that I've got as a project right now that I hope to convert to a business rental, I used a home equity line of credit on my personal residence to pay cash for this property.
Wow.
So,
That's great.
I had read that, hey, if you can make a cash offer on a house, that sometimes can make you look real appealing and help you get your offer accepted. So, when I found this small, modest house in an East Texas town, on a busy street where all the houses were starting to go commercial and being used as businesses rather than rented out as just to residential families, I tapped that line of credit that I have on my personal residence and pulled out $125,000. I pulled out my entire line of credit, $125,000, and paid cash for this property that I'm working on right now to make it rent ready, maybe for another small business operator like a CPA or an attorney or a financial planner or a realtor or something like that. So paying off properties has been invigorating, and I'd like to stay on that path and just see how many balances I can whittle away over time, knowing that, hey, with every loan that I pay off, I've got an appreciating asset. I've got something that I should be able to rent out for the foreseeable future, because there seems to be always a plethora of renters out there looking for a place to occupy, and I can put them on Zillow and market them to that potential candidate pool pretty easily and keep everything in motion.
Oh, that's great. That is really great. Well, time has kind of zipped by here on us, and I've got a ton of other questions I'd love to ask you. But I thought, well, maybe there's some folks out there too that might want to ask you those questions personally. And how can people reach you? What's a good way for people to contact you if they do have some questions?
Bill, it would be so awesome if anybody in your listening audience wanted to call or text me directly, because I would never charge for my advice or guidance, and I would cherish the opportunity to be able to maybe share some insight that might give a listener a unique perspective, and more than anything, maybe help them realize that, hey, getting involved in this you don't have to make things complicated. I certainly haven't. And you don't have to be all that smart. I'm certainly not. And yet, I've enjoyed this and have decided to stick with it. So if somebody wanted to text or call or email me, that door, that opportunity is open. And if I could, in some small way or maybe some significant way, help somebody along their journey or help somebody get off the sidelines, that would be pretty awesome.
Well, that's great. What's your contact information then? The phone and email?
Yes, my cell phone number, if you wanted to share that with anybody, that'd be great. My email address is pretty straightforward. It's emailledbetter@gmail.com. And would love to hear from somebody. I did a podcast once upon a time, Bill, where I heard from two individuals overseas that were looking to buy some rental property in Texas. and that was pretty cool. I felt it was pretty neat to talk with a perfect stranger across the pond on the other side of the world, and to say, and to, maybe try to give them some insight that they couldn't gather for themselves, through some other means.
That's great. That's great. Well, if people want to contact me, I'd be happy to forward your phone number if that's okay with you, and then they have your email there. Maybe that'd be the best way to start. Just maybe email what the challenge is, and then from there you can communicate with them however you want. But that's very generous of you, James. I really appreciate that.
Oh, you bet. And Bill, this has been time well spent. We all know how crazy busy life can be, and there's so many things we have to do these days that we may not have very much passion for, or something like that. But chatting with you on a Tuesday afternoon, man, the pleasure is all mine, and I'm eternally grateful.
Well, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for coming on and joining us today.
Thanks again, Bill.
It's my pleasure. And I also want to thank all our Old Dog listeners out there, too, for joining us. I know there's a lot of other things you could be doing right now, but the fact that you've taken the time to join us means a lot, and we really appreciate it. Now, please note everything that James talked about in there, and references to various resources as well, can be accessed in our detailed show notes on the Old Dogs website at olddogsreinetwork.com/blog. And you're going to look for the episode with James Ledbetter. Well, that's the show for today. Remember, cash flow is king and real estate investing the means. Until next time, keep moving forward, and may God bless.
Thank you very much for visiting the Old Dogs REI Network. We would greatly appreciate if you would stop by iTunes and let us know what you think of the show. We would love if you could subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and write a review. The more ratings and reviews we receive, the more visible the podcast will be to others. Thank you.